Hey guys, today we're going to go over factoring day 3. Really, factoring day 3 is just looking more at GCFs before we're factoring, so nothing super new. We kind of pre-taught this yesterday. But the first thing we should always do is look for a GCF. And here, just look 9, 36, and 45. Again, I kind of always say look at the smallest one first because that's going to be, really your limiter, right? We have 1 and 9. 3 and 3, right? If I look at 1, that's always going to be a factor. 3 is a factor in 36 because 3 goes into 36 12 times. And then 3 goes into 45 15 times. If I look at 9, right? 9 goes into 9 once. 9 goes into 36 4 times. And then 9 goes into 45 5 times. So our greatest common factor that we have to pull out first is going to be 9. I'm going to look at my variables really quick and just check that I can't. So I pull a 9 divided by 9 is 1, so that's x squared left over. 36 divided by 9 is going to be negative 4, x stays. And then 45 divided by 9 is negative 5. Okay, again, then I go ahead and I label my A, my B, and my C. And I say A times B, C is going to be negative 5 over here. So that's what? Okay. And then I think about the factors of 5, negative 1 and 5. Negative 5 and 1 if you need to write that out. You're looking for them to be a negative 4, right, when they add together. Right, for my B, if I add them, right, negative 1 plus 5 is 4. Negative 5 plus 1 is negative 4. And so that's going to be my part of my answer, right? So I have x squared goes in the top left, negative 5 goes in that bottom right, and then I have negative 5x, and I have 1x. If you're looking at x squared and x, just always going to be a greatest common factor of just x. I see the negative, I circle it, I write it, and then 5 and 5, the greatest common factor that goes into both those is 5. Again, the GCF of x squared and x is going to be x. And then I have x and negative 5, and some people are like, well, they have nothing in common, but remember this is 1x. If you can't find anything, you put a 1 there, right? So my answer here is going to be the 9 that I pulled out already times x minus 5 times x plus 1. Remember, you can write that either way. One of the biggest things I got was you can put, the 1x here and you can put the negative 5x here. Nothing's going to change in your answer. You're still going to get the right answer. So there's that one. 4 is a little bit different, though. If you see a negative A value when you're putting your A, your B, and your C, you have to pull out the negative. So if you want to make a note up here, note A value cannot be negative, right? Here, if you were looking for a GCF, you would see a negative 4, a 19, and a 5, right? If we're looking at the factors of 4, we would have 1, 2, and 4. In this case, what we're really going to do is we're just going to put a negative 1 on the outside, and everything's going to switch signs, so that 4 is going to be positive. Minus 19c, that plus 5 is going to be minus 5, since we pulled out that negative. Okay, that's really important, guys. That has to be done. So that's important note right there. From there, right, we do A, B, and C, and then A times C. 4 times negative 5 is negative 20. I'm going to go ahead and do negative 1 times 20. negative 2 times 10, negative 4 times 5, negative, if you want to keep going and do your negatives, 5 times 4, negative 10 and 2, and then negative 20 and 1, right? Okay, again, we're looking for a b-value of negative 19. So we would have a positive 19 right here, a positive 8. Negative 4 plus 5 is 1. Negative 5 plus 4 is negative 1. Negative 10 plus 2 is negative 8. And then negative 20 plus 1 is negative 19. I circle it, right? And then I go ahead and I write negative 20x with 1x. And then I have 4x and 5. And realizing right now, those are all c's. Again, that's really not going to impact everything I have. But, you know, if you want to be specific, that's a c. So then I'm looking here, c squared and c have a common factor of c. Looking here, I see a negative right there on the outside. I circle it, I write it. And then 20 and 5 share a greatest common factor of 5. I look over here at 4 and 20, and I know that they have a greatest common factor of 4. I also see that c squared and c, so I have to pull out a c as well. And then I have c and 5, so I'm going to pull out a 1 here, because remember that's a 1c. When I get my answer right, it has to be negative 1 times 4c plus 1 times c minus 5. And if I'm looking at it, right, generally you won't see that negative 1 there, but I write that just so you guys know it's there. You might just see a negative by itself, and so there's my answer. Really, guys, nothing has changed since yesterday besides probably, you know, we're for sure pulling out a GCF today, and there might be a negative GCF. Okay. Looking at 5. 5 says which expression can represent the dimensions of a rectangular prison with a volume of 12y cubed plus 62y squared plus 80y. Okay, if we're thinking about volume, just, you know, remembering length times width times height. So there's 3 things here. Okay, if I'm looking at, you know, 12y cubed plus 62y squared plus 80y, I'm going to first start looking for a GCF, right? I have 12, I have 62, and I have 80. Again, limiting factors here is going to be 12, right? So 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4, and so on and so forth. They're all positive, right? So we don't really have to worry about that. Again, 1 will work for everything. 62 can be divided by 2. 80 can be divided by 2, right? So that can work. If I try the first one of 62 divided by 3, right, that can't work, so it's not 3. 62 divided by 4 can't work, right, so I don't have to worry about 80. 62 divided by 6, that also can't work. 62 divided by 12, that also can't work, right? So it has to be something that can go into all of them. Obviously, you can do what I just did, or you can kind of play guess and check, right? So really, I can take out a 2 here. I can also take out a y here. So y squared, y cubed, and y. The smallest thing I can take out of all of them is a y. And so what I'm left with, 12 divided by 2 is 6, y squared, since I pulled out that one y. 62 divided by 2 is 31. I pulled out that y, so there's a y that stays in, plus 40, I pulled out that y, and that stays. Okay, so one of my answers, I'm going to have a 2y right there. So if I'm thinking about that, at least, 2y is one of the options in A, 2y is one of the options in B. Oh, C has a y. So I'm going to cross out C, make that, and then D also has a 2y. Again, an A, a B, and a C here, so I can factor it. So I have 6 times 40. 6 times 40 is 240. Okay, again, that's a pretty big number. If I want to, right, I can hit y equals. I can hit 240 divided by, and then I hit the x. And so I go in and I hit second graph now. And so factors of 240, 1 and 240, 2 and 120, 3 and 80, 4 and 60, 5 and 48, 6 and 40, 8 and 30, 10 and 24. If I keep scrolling, I have 12 and 20. And then I have 15 and 16. And then it kind of switches over to 16 times 15. So I'm going to stop right there just so I don't have to write any more. I'm looking for a b value of 31. Okay. Guys, with such a big number, I can start at 1 plus 240. I can get that's 241. But that's going to be a big number. So I'm thinking like as I go up, it's going to be a big number, right? So 2 plus 120 is 122. It might behoove us if you're on a time crunch or something like that on a test, start where the b value is going to be smaller, which at this point is 15 plus 16. 15 plus 16 is 31. If I'm looking for a b value of 31, hey, I just found it. Again, guys, I'm all for writing out your factors, and I'm all for making sure that they're all there. But again, once you get your b's, you're looking for a b value. Again, that's part of your testing strategies and things like that as well. So I'm going to put 15y here. I'm going to put 16y here. 6y squared and 40. From here, I go in and I look for my GCFs. So I say 6 and 16. The biggest thing I can pull out of both of those is actually 2. And then I have a y squared and a y, so there's a y there. I have 15 and I have 40. The biggest thing I can pull out of 15 and 40 is a 5, right? Because 5 times 3 is 15, and then 5 times 8 is 40. And then I have 6 and 15. The biggest thing I can pull out of both of those is 3. Y squared and y, I can pull out a y. Then I have 16 and 40. The biggest thing I can pull out of both of those is just a plain 4. There's no y. So if I'm looking for an answer right now, it has to have 2y, 3y plus 4, and 2y plus 5. Okay. If I look at B, right, it has 2y plus 4, and it has 3y plus 10. That's not really helpful to me, right, because none of those answers are over there. A, 2y is there, 2y plus 8, that's not there in my answer. I have 2y, 2y plus 5, and 3y plus 8. Okay, hey guys, I made a mistake here because I've put the 4 here. If I'm thinking about the factors of 16, 8 is also a factor of 16 and 40. And so the answer should be D. And that's my mistake. Because, again, I'm thinking about factors. I'm not thinking about greatest factors. I'm going to show you 6 just because it's a little bit different. It says the area of this parallelogram is here, and the height is x plus 2. It says find the binomial expression that can be used to find the perimeter of this parallelogram, and what is the coefficient of the leading term in this binomial. Record your answer and fill in your bubbles. Be sure to use the correct place value. Okay, lots of questions here, things here. I've underlined the area and I've underlined the height. It's asking to find the binomial expression that can be used to find the perimeter of the parallelogram. And then it's asking for what is the coefficient of the leading term of this binomial. So really it's 2 parts here. But the question is what is the coefficient of the leading term, right? Okay. So it says find the binomial expression that can be used to find the perimeter of this parallelogram. So really it's saying factor it, but you don't actually have to find the perimeter. Kind of confusing. Just because of what we're saying, right? Like you don't have to figure out the whole perimeter. So we're going to start with what we know. We have an A, we have a B, and we have a C. In this case, I'm going to look for a GCF. So I have a 3x squared, a 4x, and a 4. In this case, there's nothing I can do. So A times C. 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. Thinking about negative 1 and 12. Negative 2 and 6. Negative 3 and 4. And again, if it helps, negative 4 and 3. Negative 6 and 2. And then negative 12 and 1. My B value I'm looking for is a positive 4 right here, guys. So I'm looking for a B of a positive 4. When I add everything up, I have negative 1 plus 12 is 11. Negative 2 plus 6 is 4. And lo and behold, I'm looking for a positive 4. So I'm going to stop right there. So here, right, and just to make sure I have everything, I'm going to put my A value here. So 3x squared. I'm going to put the negative 2x. I'm going to put the 6x. And then I'm going to put my C value, which is negative 4. From here, I just have to find my GCFs, right? 3 and 6. The biggest thing that goes into both of those is 3. X squared and x. I have x. I see the negative. I circle it. I write it. And then I have 2 and negative 4. Biggest thing going to both those is 2. If I'm looking at 3 and 2, the biggest thing goes into both of those is 1, right? But I have x squared and x. So I have x. And then I have 6 and negative 4. And 6 and negative 4. The biggest thing goes in both of those is 2. So my answer, if I'm looking at it, is 3x minus 2 times x plus 2. Okay. It wants us to find the binomial expression that can be used to find the perimeter, right? So the trick here, guys, is I have the x plus 2 is the height, right? So I'm really going to ignore this x plus 2. It's really just extra stuff. But I do need the length right here, which is 3x plus 2, or minus 2, excuse me. And 3x minus 2. And then on the other side, I have an x plus 5. Okay. Then I'm just going to find the perimeter, right? A lot of people are going to want to find the perimeter. But again, the question says, find the binomial expression that could be used to find the perimeter of the parallelogram. And then what is the coefficient of the leading term? Okay, a lot of people are going to see that. And again, they're going to say, find the perimeter. All I need to do is what is the leading coefficient here? Okay, the leading coefficient is a 3. Okay, they're going to start to do extra work like I just did, and it's not going to be the answer. So the answer here is just 3. And if you put it in your bubble thing, it's a positive 3. Okay, I'm going to let you guys try 7. Okay. And then you guys, it's again another factoring question just to have you guys have some practice. 8 is 6x squared y plus 39xy plus 60y, right? In this case, again, we're looking at if there's a GCF first. Always check for a GCF first. I have 6, I have 39, and I have 60, right? I have, if I'm looking at 6, right, that's the smallest thing, right? 1's going to work. Is 2 going to work for 39? You guys can always check that, right? But if it doesn't work for 39, it's not going to work for everything else. 39 divided by 3 is 13, right? 60 divided by 3 is 20, so 3 does work. Does 6 work for 39? No, it does not. So the leading code, I'm pulling out a 3 here. Then I'm looking at letters. Do I have any letters that will work, right? I have X, X, no X, right? But I do have a Y, and a Y. So I can pull out a Y out of all of them. 3 divided by 2, or 6 divided by 2 is 3, or 6 divided by 3 is 2. The X squared stays. The Y is pulled out, so I don't have it anymore because Y divided by Y is 1. 39 divided by 3 is 13. I have the X there, no Y. And then 60 divided by 3 is 20, and then no Y. When I do an A, a B, and a C here, A times C is going to be 40, right? If I look at my terms for 40, 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, 5 and 8. 40 isn't divisible by 6. It's not divisible by 7. I'd be back to 8. They're both positive, so your B is positive at 13. 1 plus 40 is 41. 2 plus 20 is 22. 4 plus 10 is 14. And then 5 plus 8 is 13. Okay. So we would have a 5x and an 8x. We have a 2x squared here and a 20. If we do our GCFs of 2 and 8, that's 2. X squared and x, always going to have an x. 5 and 20, we were going to have a plus 5. 2 and 5 don't have a GCF. X squared and x do though, so x. And 8 and 20, we're looking, 8 doesn't go into 20, but 4 does go into 20 and 8. So our answer comes out to 3y times x plus 4 times 2x plus 5. Again, you can write that any way you want to, guys. That's fine. Again, it can be in any order, right? You could really have the 3y on the end here. It's kind of confusing there. I wouldn't say that's like proper math terminology and like best practices, but you can do it. When you're looking at your homework, guys, just make sure you read the directions for each section, right? Because it's going to tell you what to do and what not to do and how many to pick. It's also going to potentially have things like primes and just a GCF. And so you won't always use a box method all the time. If it is prime, right, remember that you do your factors. You do your factors in your factor table, and they don't add up to your B. So just something to keep in mind, because that is something that will come up. And so you should be aware of that again. Thanks. Have a great day.